Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of the Positive Proof Podcast. I'm your host, Parmis, and I'm so glad that you're here. If you want to listen to more episodes like this one on self-improvement, mindset, and wellness, go ahead and hit that follow button to join the family. Before I get into today's episode, I just want to ask you guys for a quick and kind favor, and that is if you haven't yet left a review, I would absolutely appreciate if you could do so. It helps so much to build this podcast and help it grow so that we can increase the positive impact we make and just overall make it a bigger community. Also, if you are looking for daily motivation, follow me on Instagram at Positive Proof Podcast, where I post daily quotes that serve as sweet daily reminders. And if anyone is wondering how to leave episode requests, you can actually send me your thoughts via the DM me your thoughts link in the description or via Instagram DM as well. Now, today we're talking about the joy of being irrelevant. And I know at first that might sound a little harsh. Nobody wants to feel irrelevant, right? But what if I told you that irrelevance can actually be the most freeing thing you'll ever embrace? Because we live in a culture where we are constantly told to be visible, to be loud, to be seen, especially online. And it's exhausting. So this episode is about reclaiming your peace, unplugging from the need for approval, and finding joy in these small, unposted moments. So if you've been feeling tired of performing all the time, or you've caught yourself overthinking what to post, or you've just felt drained by the pressure of being relevant, this is your reminder that there is another way. So let's talk about it. Before we dive in though, quick poll check-in for you if you're tuning in from Spotify. I want you to let me know, do you feel like you spend too much energy worrying about what other people think? Yes, no, or sometimes? Tap the poll, I want to know, because today's episode is going to hit that nerve in the best way. Starting off with section 1, we're going to talk about the weight of invisible audiences. Now, you know what's funny? We spend so much time thinking about what people think of us. But the truth is, most of the time, nobody's really paying attention. And I know you've heard that before. I don't mean that in a depressing, nobody cares about me way. I mean it in the most freeing way possible. Because when you really sit with it, you realize how much of your life is shaped around this invisible audience that exists really only in your head. You post something on Instagram and immediately wonder, what will people think of this? Did I sound weird? Do I look good enough? Did I share too much? But the reality is, the majority of people scroll past without a second thought. And those who don't, they're usually thinking about themselves, not you. Think about the last time you saw someone else's post and cringed. Did you dwell on it for days, or did you double tap, maybe roll your eyes and keep scrolling? Exactly. Yet, when it's us, we assume the entire internet has set aside time to dissect our every move. We act like the audience is taking notes, cataloging our mistakes, whispering behind our backs. But honestly, they're too busy worrying about their own mistakes and their own image, their own invisible audience. And here's where the exhaustion comes in. Social media has tricked us into performing all the time. Every post, every caption, every story becomes part of this performance where we're both the actor and the director, constantly checking whether the audience approves. It's exhausting because it's endless. There's no curtain call, no point where you can step off stage and rest, unless you decide to walk away yourself. Think about it. Who exactly are you protecting yourself from? Random high school classmates? Strangers who don't even follow you? People who probably don't even remember you exist until your post shows up in their feed? When you break it down like that, it sounds kind of silly, right? And that's where the joy of being irrelevant starts to creep in. Irrelevant doesn't mean unimportant. It doesn't mean you don't matter. It just means you're not under a microscope. It means you don't have to carry the weight of everyone's imagined opinions on your shoulders. And when you realize that the majority of people don't care enough to judge you, or at least they don't care for long, you start to feel free. There is a quiet relief in realizing you're not the main character in everyone else's story. You're just an extra passing by in the background, maybe noticed for a second, then forgotten as the plot continues. And that's not a bad thing. That is a gift. Because if you're not the main character in their story, then you don't need to perform for them. You only need to live yours. And here's the other piece. Even if people do judge you, so what? Their opinions don't have as much power as you think they do. Someone might laugh at your post, gossip about you in passing, or decide they don't like your vibe, but guess what? That judgment lives in their head, not yours. You don't have to carry it. And chances are, if they're judging you, it's more about them than it is about you. Because someone who is happy with themselves will never judge others. I'm going to say that again. Someone who is happy with themselves will never judge others. Yet even with all that said, we act like other people's opinions are permanent tattoos on our identity when really they're just passing thoughts floating around in someone else's mind. I think that's the real fatigue so many of us feel with social media. It's not just the endless scrolling or the algorithm changes or the ads. It's the weight of constantly imagining that invisible audience. It's like carrying around an entire stadium of people in your pocket, waiting for their applause and fearing their boos. And the craziest part is the stadium isn't even real. It's just a projection. So here's the question I've been asking myself lately. What would you do differently if you truly believed nobody was watching? What would you post if you weren't chasing likes or worried about judgment? How would you live if you stopped imagining the crowd and just focused on the handful of people who actually matter? Because the truth is, your life isn't a show. It's not content. It's not up for review. It's just yours. And when you let go of that invisible audience, when you stop living for the reactions, you finally get to live for yourself. And that feels lighter. It feels freer and so much more real. Moving on to section number 2, the myth of relevance online. Here's the thing about being relevant on the internet. It's a moving target. You never really arrive at it. One week, the trend is beige aesthetics and matcha lattes. The next week, it's neon nails and Diet Coke. One week, the algorithm rewards long captions. The next, it's punishing you unless you're posting 5-second videos with text on screen. And somehow, we're all supposed to keep up. We are supposed to reinvent ourselves every single week just to stay on the radar. But the truth is, relevance isn't even something you can control. It's not a reflection of your value or your creativity or your worth. It's just an algorithm feeding people what it thinks will keep them scrolling. And here's the catch. Algorithms don't care about you. They don't care about your mental health, your effort, or the hours you put into editing a post. They care about data. They care about keeping people glued to their screens. So when you're killing yourself trying to be relevant online, you're actually just trying to please a machine. That's where the fatigue sets in, because how do you win a game that's designed for you to lose? Every time you think you've cracked the code, the rules change. Every time you start to feel confident, the metrics shift. It's like running on a treadmill that speeds up just when you catch your breath. And eventually, you realize the treadmill doesn't end. You could spend your whole life trying to stay relevant online and still feel like you're falling behind. And this can apply offline as well, like in the workplace, at school, etc. And yet through all this, we treat relevance like it's the holy grail. If a post flops, we assume it's because we're not interesting enough, not funny enough, not pretty enough. If it does well, we feel like we've earned a stamp of approval, like we've proven our worth. But that's the trap. Tying your sense of self to a system that was never designed to validate you in the first place, it's like asking a slot machine to confirm your value. Sometimes you'll hit, but it's random. It's not real. I think part of the reason this feels so heavy is because relevance used to mean something different. Before social media, being relevant meant being meaningful to your community, your family, your circle. It meant people valued your presence and contributions. But now, relevance has been hijacked by algorithms. It's about numbers, not relationships. It's about trends, not truth. And that shift has made us forget what actually matters. Here's the liberating part. Once you realize that online relevance is fake, that it's just pixels moving across a screen, you can stop chasing it. You can actually step out of the game completely. You can decide that being irrelevant in the digital world is actually the most powerful thing you can do. Because when you're irrelevant online, you are free to be relevant in real life. You can stop burning yourself out trying to match the latest trend or the algorithm's latest obsession and start putting that energy into the people and things that actually matter. And here's the kicker. The less you care about being relevant online, the more magnetic you become. People can actually feel when you're posting out of authenticity and passion versus desperation. They can tell when you're sharing because it's true to you, not because you're trying to ride the wave of a trend. Ironically, the minute you stop chasing relevance, you often end up creating content that resonates more deeply because it's real. It's not optimized for an algorithm, it's optimized for connection. So maybe the real myth is this idea that being relevant online equals being successful. What if irrelevance is actually the win? What if the joy of being irrelevant is that you get to define success on your own terms? Instead of refreshing your insights and obsessing over reach, you could be spending that time doing things you actually enjoy. Instead of curating every detail for strangers, you could be fully present with people who already know you and love you. At the end of the day, the internet forgets. Trends fade, algorithms shift, your content gets buried under the endless scroll. But the conversations you have at dinner, the friends that you laugh with, the work that you're proud of, those are the things that last. And none of them require you to be relevant online. So the next time you feel the pressure to keep up, remember this: relevance is just a myth. It's not real. It's not permanent, and it's not worth sacrificing your peace for. And maybe the real flex isn't being relevant at all. Maybe it's being irrelevant and completely unbothered by it. Moving on to section number 3, we're going to talk about quiet confidence over loud validation. One of the biggest shifts that I've had in my life, and maybe you'll relate to this too, is realizing that the loudest people aren't always the most confident. In fact, they're often the opposite. The constant need to prove, to show, to announce, to explain, that is usually coming from a place of insecurity. True confidence, the kind that's rooted in calm, doesn't need a megaphone. It doesn't need a million likes. It doesn't even need to be seen. And that's what makes the idea of irrelevance so beautiful, because when you stop chasing loud validation, the kind that comes in the forms of likes, comments, shares, and follower count, you start building quiet confidence. Quiet confidence is posting something because you like it, even if nobody responds. It's showing up to dinner without needing to tell everyone about your latest achievement. It's the peace of knowing who you are without waiting for the internet to clap for you. Think about the people in your life who just have it, not in the flashy sense, but in the steady, magnetic way. They don't need to post every day. They don't need to convince you of their worth. They don't even need to explain themselves. They walk into a room and you just know. That energy doesn't come from being relevant, it comes from self-trust. And you can't fake that. Social media makes us think the opposite is true. We're told that the more people see us, the more valid we are. The louder we are, the more power we have. But if you look closely, some of the loudest voices online are also the most fragile. Their self-worth rises and falls with the algorithm. If their post tanks, they spiral. If their content goes viral, they feel untouchable, but only until the next post. That's not confidence, that's dependency. Quiet confidence is the antidote. It's not sexy, it's not always visible, and it doesn't always get the applause, but it lasts. It's steady. It's the kind of confidence that lets you go out without makeup and not care who you run into. It's the kind of confidence that lets you step back from posting for a week without worrying that people will forget you. It's the kind of confidence that whispers, I know who I am, I don't need you to remind me. And here's the best part.